Tim Ward.
Hi, Katie Phillips. How are you?
I'm good. So, you and I usually record our weekly conversations, or we pretend we're being recorded, but today we actually have cameras.
We actually have cameras. We're talking.
pretend
That's
that
right.
we're
No
being
pretending
filmed.
today.
While we chat. So you're a parent.
As are you.
I am.
Which is a commonality that we both have.
true. We
We're
have
also both pastors.
We are.
So we have kids of pastors.
That's true. We are parents of PKs.
That's right.
How
had to think
old
through
are
that.
your kids?
My kids, we have our first kid who is in college. So he's 18, will be 19 soon. And then we have twins, boy-girl twins, that are juniors in high school. What about you?
Unreal. I have 3 daughters. Oldest is a senior in high school, freshman in high school, and 7th grade.
Okay, so you're really spread out in those middle school, high school years.
This is the first year out of elementary,
Okay.
which I'm excited about.
Yeah, I felt like elementary school went forever.
Yeah. No, it did. And especially with 3 kids, it takes a long time. And there's a lot of ask of parents in elementary school.
There is.
Which is a delight and also a relief. When
Oh,
you get
yeah.
to middle school and you go, you don't need me to bake brownies or
When my
read to you
kids
on Tuesdays?
when my kids were in elementary school, I was room parent for one of them for first grade, and then I was PTA president. And when I got to the middle school with our kids, the principal met me and she said, "I heard you were PTA president at your elementary school." And I said, "Yeah, that's not going to happen again." I
was.
did that. I
You're
finished
right, I
that.
was.
Everybody else needs to do their dues. So
You were PTA president?
I was PTA president.
Best part about being PTA president.
Oh, that's going to take a hot minute. I mean, that's going to take a minute to figure out. But, there were a lot of great things. I met the teachers and supporting the teachers and staff. I mean, the hardest thing were the parents. And that's a little bit of what we're talking about today, how we navigate this thing called parenting and how it's different through different seasons and that sort of thing. But my kids used to say, "Oh, Dad, you're like a celebrity coming into school." I was like, yeah, it's really hard to be a celebrity when everybody wants something from you. So
It is so hard being a celebrity.
yeah, isn't it? It's a real challenge to be a
Oh,
celebrity.
the people that adore us.
Yeah,
really hard.
it's so great. And
No, it
and we have fidget spinners in case we talk too much about being celebrities instead of about being parents of kids.
We got distracted. Okay,
did.
but the part of that resonates with me is that it does put our kids in the public eye
It does.
in a different way. And I think that at least in our congregations, if not in our communities, our kids become kind of co-owned,
Right? Sure.
which is a gift. I love that multiple congregations have been part of raising my kids.
Yeah.
And I'll forever be thankful for that. But I know that it's also challenging for them sometimes to feel like their every move is evaluated or that they're known as the pastor's kids.
Yeah.
Have you run into that?
I mean, I've definitely run into that. I think for me, just taking a step back, because I think that's absolutely true. I think for me, navigating how to remain a parent while being a pastor of a church has been challenging because the church will suck every minute of time that you allow it to take out of you. So I remember there were weeks where big, beautiful things were happening in my kids' lives, and I wasn't able to be a part of them because I had meetings every single night of the week. So not only are our kids in like this fishbowl that I see often, and assumptions, lots of assumptions made like, oh, you're a pastor's kid. You're either going to be perfect
Right.
or you're going to be horrendous.
Right.
A lot of people say, oh, they're pastor's kids. I'm like, what does that mean?
What's your
like, help me understand.
Yeah.
So I think part of raising kids for my wife and I was about her having to constantly remind me about boundaries and how to set those boundaries, how my kids are not me, and how just because I need to do something doesn't mean they have to do something. And we really tried to navigate that together. There were a lot of trips in there, mission trips, things like that. I went to licensing school when our twins were 3 months old. So my wife had a 2-year-old and 3-month-old twins at home. And I was gone for 14 days. And that was fun
Yeah, sure.
for her.
I'm sure. Where is she? Can she come sit down?
Right. Yeah. So I think it's part of it has been figuring out how to do balance. And I've gotten much better at that over time. But early on, I felt like every single thing the church said, I had to do. I don't know if you felt that way too.
Totally agree. And you sometimes see those, like if you could talk to your younger self, what would you say? And so I do try to say this to younger clergy, because it took me a while to really figure out about boundaries and to also understand how much influence we have on setting that.
100%. Right?
And it was modeled for me by some good pastors. It's been modeled both directions.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
But I remember serving as an associate under a pastor who would literally sometimes, we're at an administrative board meeting and they're setting the next date for something. And he would go, nope, can't do that one. That's date night. And it was just like, that's what it is.
It's over. Yeah.
And just honoring, this is my family life. That's not a flexible, boundary for me. Meant a lot.
Yeah. I vividly remember one of the first times where my kid was getting some award or something. And I remember looking in my kid's face and them going, Dad, you're not going to be there. And that was a real shift for me to going, hey, I can't just do every single meeting and every single event and every single thing. And frankly, the church doesn't need us to.
That's right.
I think that's really important.
It is. I was going to say that's the second piece of learning is it's not healthy for the church.
Absolutely.
The church has to be able to own its ministry and for us to be stewards of how that's shaped. But if everything relies on us, I don't think we're leading well.
And we're not showing our kids what it's like to be part of the church in a healthy and good way. What has been for you, I want to get back to your thing about raising PKs and all that. What's been for you something that you've sort of learned over time and grown in thinking about parenting PKs in the church?
I think the assumptions, like you just said, that your kids are going to behave this certain way. I think the other assumption is that your children are Bible scholars.
or even that our spouses are.
Our spouses,
absolutely.
That's right. I remember, a previous church I served, the Christian education director comes laughing, during Lent to a staff meeting because she had asked the third grade Sunday school class, which one of my daughters was in at the time, they were going to do a cross craft. And she's trying to build up to this story of Jesus on the cross in an age-appropriate way, third grade. And so she's asking them what they know about how Jesus died. And the kids are not answering. And so she finally calls on my kid, like, well, how did Jesus die? And my kid goes, was it a heart attack? And it was kind of like his mom was like, oh, like, have we not? So I think there's this weird pressure that I sometimes feel like, am I doing it right? The faith formation part with my own kids, but then also allowing grace for ourselves and that, I don't know, I think we have to be really purposeful with our kids about allowing the experience of church to be one that is loving and safe and peaceful and grace-filled. And if it has to be performative for them, I think that's a pretty probably fast route for our kids not choosing a life of faith.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think for me, all of that is true. And I think for me, one of the things I had to grow in over time when it came to my kids in the church was being a little more vulnerable from the pulpit so that they saw that the dad they saw at home was the dad they saw at church. And I think that I thought about that a lot. And I think this is just something that grows in pastoral ministry over time, at least for me anyway, is just the ability to say, hey, I am preaching to myself today as much as I am sharing with you. I am working on this. I am struggling with this. But I found over time that as I would say, hey, church, sometimes I get angry.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you about a situation that happened with my kids last week where they did absolutely nothing. And I allowed my own day to impact that, my own day to affect that. And how I remember coming home and my kids going, Dad, wow, that was really honest. And that was a real turning point for them to go, we will not be the butt of sermons. We will not be the joke of sermons. We will be part of the illustration for the sake of people seeing that you're a human that's trying to grow in your sanctification as well. And I think their own growth has their own faith development has been modeled. I've tried to model it for them so that they can go, hey, Dad, I messed up.
Yeah.
I did this thing. I'm working on me. And then grace is that piece of the puzzle. Faith development, and I think Sunday school is really important. I think youth groups are really important. I think all those things are really important. I still firmly believe that the biggest place of faith development happens in the home.
Sure.
And I think when we are one way at home and one way up front, it really sends mixed messages to our kids.
The moment for me with that, so add to this that I went through a divorce and was a single mom for many years of being a pastor and raising my kids. And I remember getting all three of them like out of their car seats and or to church in the morning, and I realized one of my kids is not wearing shoes. Like, how did this even happen? And I'm like, asking her in a like loud voice, not yelling at my kid, but like, how could you even walk out of the house? And meanwhile, it's like people walking by, good morning, pastor. And I'm like, good morning.
Right.
It was like, wait a minute, this is like Jekyll and Hyde.
It really is.
What a false like situation. And it was a real kind of catch myself moment that I'm the one being performative right now in front of my kids.
And we had another shift. I think that was a big shift for us. Another shift was with us was around sports. If you're in Northern Virginia, which we both are, there are a lot of sports on Sunday. There are tournaments on Sunday. Travel sports are on Sunday. And for the longest time, our family rule was you have to go to church. There's no question. Doesn't matter what we signed you up for, you will go to church. And it's not like we ever pivoted and said that's no longer the rule. Right. But we started to work with our kids and show grace. And then what we found was, right now at our church, we have 2 services. If our kids have to work on Sunday or if they have a sports event, they will go to the other service on their own without us driving them, because there's grace. Like there's no, well, you're not going to church tomorrow. It is sort of assumed in our family system that the church is a really important part of our family life, but there's no more mandatory. Like my wife doesn't need to drive anybody to church anymore. Nobody has to come with me at 6:30 to get here. And I think that's been a real shift in parenting that I wish, would I have changed it when they were little and said, you don't have to come and be part of the church? No, because I was in a church plant, which meant everybody had to come and be part of it, right? We're all setting up chairs, we're all doing the thing. But I might have changed more of sort of my militant nature of like church on Sunday morning. Like if you have a sleepover, you may not go to grandma's house that's an hour away because you must be
there Sunday.
And that sort of thing. I think I'd shift that a little bit. If I were a new parent, I would navigate that differently because I don't see a lot of grace in that.
I think that's beautiful. I think one of the real gifts is also the influence of my friends who are colleagues being part of my kids' faith. And during COVID, where I happen to live is closer to another United Methodist church than the one I served. And the church I served, youth group, during COVID wasn't happening in the same kind of way, but the one down the street from us was. And so 2 of my kids started doing their outdoor youth group and ended up being confirmed in that United Methodist church with one of our friends and colleagues leading it. And it ended up being extraordinary. And my kids, 2 of my kids, would come home and go, Mom, did you know? And like name some sort of like pretty basic premise of faith that I had hoped they knew, but hearing it from someone other than me.
Right.
And being part of a group where no one was speaking to them as the PK was a real gift to them. So I don't know. I kind of wish I'd maybe embraced some of those opportunities even sooner. Not exclusively, right?
Sure.
But to also add in some more opportunities for my kids to maybe experience church that their mom's not leaving.
Right? Because it's a little different when mom or dad are up there and leading. Now, fast forward, our kids are both older now. All of our kids are older, not just the 2 of them. All of our kids are older. And one of the things I've really observed is that it's no longer sort of the judgment about kids and their age, at least for me. It's no longer about like, your kids did this at church, excuse me, or I saw your kid running around the neighborhood, or I heard just a kid said this at school. Now, people are really looking to me for some of the guidance about some of the bigger things that happen, choices that your kids can make, and assumptions that either your kids... I had a woman come up to me recently who I hadn't seen in years, and she said something like, well, pastors' kids are always the worst. And I was like, wow, like that's pretty harsh. I don't assume that my kids are going to be terrible kids. If anything, the older that they've gotten, I've tried to break down some of the fences of assumption and tried to meet them where they are and say, how do I help you experience grace? With our kid who's in college right now, we're learning the rules just like everybody else. Like, how do you navigate a kid that's an adult and is a kid, and they're still a kid because they want my money, right? I mean, that's a big part of it. But how do you navigate that and his faith journey in college? I don't go to church with him anymore.
Right.
So what does that look like, and how do I navigate that? So that's been a new journey for us. Every new phase is a new journey, but this one is especially new, and how we navigate this affects our other 2 who are right behind him. a couple of years later. And you guys are in a similar boat. Well, you're starting to do the college.
We're the stair step to college. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I think one of the gifts of my kids being teenagers has been their friends looking, sometimes pursuing conversations around faith with me because they know their friend's mom is a pastor.
Oh, interesting.
And that has been kind of lovely. And I almost think it's been a route for my kids to even open up more as they've realized that their friends want to have those conversations, or that maybe I'm a resource in those ways. Have you experienced?
We definitely have. We have the open pantry at our house. Like that's kind of my rule. Actually, when our son was really, really little, like 6 months old, I went to the grocery store and bought a ton of snacks and put them in the pantry. And my wife's like, "What are you doing? We don't need these snacks in our house." And I was like, "But what if his friends come over, right?" So we're the open pantry, and because of that, also one of our kids, both of them actually, both of our boys have hosted Bible studies at our house on their own. Like we have nothing to do with it. It's not through the church. It's just some neighborhood thing they do. So it has been really fascinating, especially with all of the rhetoric that's happening about the church in the world right now, with all the words about, well, does God believe this? Does God believe this? I've gotten to have some really great conversations. In fact, I remember when our twins were in middle school, I walked in one day for some end of the year celebration or something, and everybody started yelling, PT, PT, PT. I'm like, what is PT? Why are you yelling at me? They're like, it's Pastor Tim, Pastor Tim. So we've been able, right? I get it. Yeah, back to the celebrity.
But and then there was clapping.
Right, there was clapping, and people
I had to sign a bunch of
things. Right, I did, of course. But in all seriousness, the fact that we can be that resource for our kids and for their friends, and they're asking some really honest, vulnerable, deep questions. I haven't had anybody come and ask me to talk about the perichoretic relationship of the Trinity, but I have had kids come and ask me about inclusion. I've had kids come and ask me about suicide. I've had kids, and these are my kids' friends that feel like I'm a safe place to have this honest dialogue with, and don't feel like they'll be judged for asking the question. But part of that is because my favorite stage, if my kids are going to see this, I hope they don't, my favorite stage of parenting has been teenagers.
Yeah.
Hands down, because we're able to have this dialogue and this conversation, and our kids open this conversation with their friends who then open it with us.
For sure. I mean, I think that I've grown so much as a person through engaging my kids, engaging me on what matters to them and what they care about, or pushing back.
Yeah.
With me, well, Mom, I'm not sure I agree with that. Which at first there's this moment of like, what?
Yeah.
But I raised you.
Right.
You always, but it is. And them bringing their friends to church has been a really cool thing. Like as part of that process, like as their friends go, I want to hear more about that, or can I go to church with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did back to when your kids were little, maybe, how would your kids describe what you do for a living? Did you ever have those?
I mean, I think it was funny. Like there were times when people would say, my dad's a pastor, and people were like, he only works on Sundays.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. And they'd say, well, what does he do the rest of the week? Like, I don't know, go to meetings, right? Because that's the only other thing we do is go to meetings and pastor. So yeah, there were lots of conversations about that. I will say it was often my kids' friends' parents that were the weirdest about it, right? It wasn't their friends. Their friends would come over and they'd be like, but you're going to a pastor's house. You can't do X, you can't do Y, you can't do Z. So that was awkward. What about you?
Yeah, my favorite moment is one of my kids had a little friend over, and I'd made them a snack, and I'm cleaning up in the kitchen, and the friend goes, what does your mom do? And my daughter goes, well, she used to be funny, but now she's a pastor. You can't be both.
No, your daughter is wrong about that. You are a very funny
I don't
pastor.
know. I've moved on apparently.
No.
But I think it's an interesting point, because I think when our kids are little, your friend community is often your kids.
Absolutely. That was very real for us.
And often then those are friends that are made in the church or in the school, which is also the community where you serve as a pastor. And so I think that it can be a really challenging place for pastors to create friendships and hold on to boundaries around being a pastor.
Absolutely.
The set apart nature of our ministry. So I think learning to really take good care of the friendships that were outside of those spaces,
100%.
with our colleagues and with our friends, and because I think that balance can be hard.
And that can be hard for our kids too. Like I'm now serving my third church in my time in ministry, and my kids made deep friendships in each of those churches, which is what I had hoped for them. We made deep friendships with parents of those kids because our kids were on sports teams. I mean, wherever we were, we tried to embed ourselves in the community. And a lot of times that intersected with people from church. And that's been hard for some of our kids as we moved to other churches. Not that like friendships just died, but that we didn't see those folks as much anymore because we want to honor those disconnections as much as the connections. And that's been a bit of a navigating challenge as well with our kids, because we want to be in community with people that we have an opportunity to be in church with.
Yeah, that's right. What have you had to navigate any challenging boundaries with members of your church and the ways they engage your kids?
I mean, the church has blessed us in so many ways. When we had 3 kids 2 and under, 3 kids, not 2 kids, 3 kids 2 and under, I don't think we made a meal for the first 6 months of our twins' lives. Like the church just came in and people offered free babysitting and things like that. So the church has blessed us a lot. I think if anything, one of the biggest boundaries has been my time. And people thinking, in my first church, I gave out my cell phone number. I don't do that anymore because people would text at 2 a.m. or, hey, I need this at 5 a.m. And I get when it's an emergency, but a lot of times it wasn't an emergency.
I've been asking for your cell number for years.
Yeah, I'm not going to give it to you. It's
today,
maybe later. It depends. Maybe once we're off. I'll give it to you off camera.
Just check in.
Just check in with me. But in all seriousness, I think if anything, the expectation of I'm always available.
Yeah, right.
And I think to your earlier point, I think sometimes I put that out there more than they do as a church. Yes. Where they're like, oh, this is happening. He's got to be there. You know, somebody's having surgery at 5 a.m., so I got to be there at 4, even if my kid needs a ride to this thing or this thing. So I think what about you? That's probably one of my biggest things.
Yeah, well, so my oldest daughter has a lot of medical needs and has had a lot of surgeries. And so navigating that has been challenging. Sometimes wanting to say yes and be grateful for the kindness of the church, but also have boundaries.
Yeah, that's hard.
With our family. But I think the blessings far outweigh, the challenges around it.
To people who are pastors who have kids, whether they're young kids, whether they're sort of middle of the road as far as parenting, which I think never stops, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm learning that. What would you give one piece of advice about being a pastor and having kids in the church?
Yeah, so I do think it's cliche, but true, which is how something maybe becomes cliche. And that is that your family really is your primary ministry. And you named it before, that when you're preaching, it's your authentic relationship with God. It's your prophetic voice, but also your own authentic learning. And so for us to just really honor that ministry to our families and with our families and not allow the church to take more, to allow ourselves to believe maybe, like we've both said, that they need more of us than they actually do. That I think leading well is showing good boundaries and honoring our families and our family time. What about you?
I love that. I really love that. And maybe I would have said that, but you said it, so I'll give something else.
Good.
Thank you.
The B answer would be?
B. Okay, I'll go with that. So when I was at the very first church that I had the opportunity to serve, I remember the first year I was there, we had a senior dinner for our seniors in high school. And they took the biblical concept of blessing and they had every parent offer a blessing to their child. And I was weeping. I didn't even know these kids that well yet. I was new. And I'm weeping at them saying that when we had babies at home, thinking about doing that someday for our kids. And then I got here to Crossroads, and Crossroads encourages parents to offer blessings at every step of the way. So like when someone gives when someone receives baptism, they get up and they publicly offer a blessing. When kids get their Bibles, they get a blessing. When kids cross over from elementary to middle school, they get a blessing. Confirmation, parents read a blessing. Seniors, they get, and I think if I could give parents one piece of advice, I would say offer your kid blessing every single day, because the world will try to tear that away. And frankly, maybe I'm the only pastor, but I am my worst self in my home. And I don't mean I'm a terrible person. That's not what I'm saying. But I feel safe there. Sure. My guards are down there. So I am my very worst self. And I need to counterbalance that reality with blessing, to remind my kids that they are loved every single day, that God has this incredible joy. I remember early on in my career when Reverend Tom Berlin was the pastor of the church that I was serving, now Bishop Berlin, I better say it correctly or I'll get corrected. Right. He would say to people, you are one of God's very favorite children. Oh. And if I could say that to my kids every single day, and that's not just PKs, that's not just pastors and kids, I encourage people to do that because, again, the world will beat our children up.
That's right.
And our kids will mimic blessing upon blessing, and blessing begets blessing.
That's right.
So if we can offer that to our kids, if you can offer that to your kids as a pastor, I think that's a win.
I love that.
I think it's a huge win.
You are my child, whom I love, with whom I am well pleased.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And you are not defined by what you did yesterday. You are defined by the fact that you are a child of God.
I love that.
And that is a blessing. So maybe, I think that's it.
Well, you're a blessing.
You are a blessing. And I'm going to give you my phone number.
Hey, come on.
You got it. Katie, thank you so much for hanging out with me. This has been a gift, and I hope it's been a gift for people in the conference just to be able to get a little bit, and I won't even say wisdom, a little bit of knowledge from us, because I'm still growing as a parent.
Yeah, for sure.
I know you've got it all under control, but I'm still growing.
Yeah, good. We'll keep watching and learning.
I will. Thanks, Katie.